Hello, welcome to Cook to Nourish. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about what is AIP, the basics. What is it? What is the science behind it? And who can benefit from this diet? All right. Now, if you're new to my channel, I highly recommend you watch the other video where I talk about causes of inflammation and causes of autoimmune disease. And towards the end of that presentation, I talk about AIP. And also, if you are, familiar with my channel, you have seen all my AIP recipes that I post. So, but if you are wondering what is AIP useful for, I thought I will just kind of take a step back and talk more about AIP to people who are new to AIP or who have just heard about AIP and really don't understand the science behind it or whether it can be beneficial to them or not. All right, so let's get started. All right, so what is AIP and who can benefit from it? Right, so let's see. What is AIP? Again, as I said before, autoimmune protocol. That's what AIP stands for. And sometimes people also call it as autoimmune paleo or also the paleo approach. The other cool thing about AIP is that it's a science-based approach and it consists of two phases, the elimination diet phase and the reintroduction phase. Those are the two main phases, and I will talk about these in greater detail just a little bit later. And other important thing about AIP is that it's not just a diet program, it also includes lifestyle changes. Or, AIP also recommends lifestyle changes along with dietary changes. And that's big. The other quick thing, who are the people associated with the AIP? Who are the, pioneers of this movement? Dr. Lauren Cordain was the founder of the paleo movement. Then Rob Wolf, Chris Kresser, Datis Karazian. You may be familiar with all these names out there because they are the ones who, again, worked on the paleo diet as well as tweaked it and created like an elimination diet. And finally, Dr. Sarah Ballantyne, whom we all know as the paleo mom, she's the one who researched, refined, and wrote extensively about the protocol in her book, The Paleo Approach. So if you are, scientifically inclined and really want to get to know the science behind AIP, I highly recommend you get her book, The Paleo Approach. Now, getting back to what is AIP? In a very simplistic manner, AIP consists of two main things. One is eliminating all the bad foods, eliminating all potential inflammatory foods from our diet. And then the second piece of it is to add in all the beneficial foods, nutrient-dense, healing foods into the diet. And that, in a sense, is what AIP is. And as I said before, in addition to diet, it also it also stresses on the lifestyle factors, which include stress, sleep, exercise or movement, as well as connection and mindfulness. Now, before we get into more about AIP, we also, I just want to quickly also share what AIP, what's the science behind AIP. And I shared some of this, in detail on my first presentation or video where I talk about causes of inflammation. However, here I want to talk a little bit more about that, and that is the leaky gut. So when I talked about, inflammation, causes behind inflammation, we talked about, all the potential triggers that can ultimately lead to leaky gut, which is the root cause of inflammation. So that is what, AIP is trying to do. It is trying to heal that leaky gut, which is the root cause of all inflammation. So when you have leaky gut, this is what, happens. Your small intestine, right? That is your gut. That is the location of 70 to 80% of our entire immune system. And when our gut is leaky, that means that partially digested foods leak through it. And these are then the triggers for causing an immune response or an unwanted immune response. And most of the times that's what leads to unwanted reaction from the immune system, causing autoimmune disease, and that actually leads to inflammation. Okay, so now leaky gut is considered as a prerequisite for autoimmune disease to develop. There is no doubt about that. And that is why, that's where I guess AIP comes into the picture. The role of AIP, the goal of AIP is to heal or to fix that leaky gut. And again, as I said before, what are the two tenets of AIP? Avoiding all potentially inflammatory foods, any food that can stimulate the immune system or harm the GI tract. We are eliminating it, taking it out completely so that the immune system and our gut actually has time to heal. And then further, we are also adding in nutrient dense foods that can enable healing of the gut and enable the immune system to function back normally. And how AIP works to balance the immune system is again by this chart really represents that very well, in terms of there are three main components: the nutrient density, which is what when you eat nutrient dense foods, that's what AIP recommends. What happens is you're giving a lot of nutrients to your immune system, and our immune system is actually a nutrient hogger. It really needs a lot of different kinds of nutrients. What are nutrients, by the way? Nutrients means all your things like vitamins or minerals, right? So both macro minerals or micro minerals, excuse me, all those substances that can actually be utilized by our body to make an organ function well. So those are the nutrients, and nutrients are all coming from our food. So that's one way that helps to fix the immune system. And then the second way is again eating healthy and eating the right kind of foods help to balance our gut flora. That's the gut health, where we have probiotic microorganisms that are actually beneficial for our body. We do not want the bad microorganisms which can create havoc in our body. And so that balance of the good and the bad, and good digestive health, all that is your gut health. And AIP, just eating an AIP diet can help you accomplish that. And then finally, hormone regulation is also important when it comes to immune system functioning. And for hormone regulation to, again, all these factors with respect to diet and gut health also matters. So in that, all these three are interrelated. And then further, lifestyle factors that I said, AIP highly recommends or talks about lifestyle factors like stress, sleep, and exercise, etc. So those are also very critical for hormone regulation, and that in turn has an impact on the immune system. All right, so that is how AIP works. Next, implementation of AIP. How do you actually implement AIP? So you can say roughly there are three phases to implementing it. Mainly the two phases that I talked earlier, right? The maintenance phase or elimination phase, and then the reintroduction phase. But before that, you can add in another phase, transitioning phase, meaning like if you are coming from a SAD diet, the standard American diet, and want to go to AIP, and if you're not able to do it like overnight, right, cutting away all the foods, there is a process to do it where you can transition. And that's one of the things I do when I coach clients to go into AIP. Depending upon where they are at, they may either be ready to go cold turkey with it and jump into it right away, or they might need a transitioning period. So that's one phase. And then after that, when you're fully 100% AIP, which means 100% AIP generally means AIP elimination. That means you are going to avoid all the foods that I'm just going to talk about, in the next slide. That's what, when you avoid all those foods, that means you're doing AIP elimination. And generally the recommendation is to stay in this AIP elimination phase for 30 to 90 days. This is when you're first starting AIP. If you've never done AIP before, this is the first time you're doing it, highly recommended, do it at least 30 to 90 days. Now, why the range, right? 30 days to 90 days, that's only because people are different. The level of inflammation in your body, that actually, decides how long you need to be on AIP elimination phase. For most people who have like rheumatoid arthritis, I recommend that they do it for 90 days. because, generally the inflammation levels are really high by the time they, decide to come to work with me on AIP. That's why I really recommend that they stay on the elimination phase for at least 90 days. But again, it depends on how inflamed your body is. But the recommendation is that at a minimum, you stay on the AIP elimination at least 30 days or until you feel an improvement in your symptoms. Now, that's a very important piece, that you need to be better from your baseline. Because if you're not better from your baseline and then you reintroduce foods, then you are not going to know whether the foods that you're reintroducing are having a problem or not, are creating a problem or not. So it's very important that you be on the maintenance phase until you begin to see an improvement in your symptoms. And that's the main thing here. And after that, the reintroduction starts. That means there is a phase. There's also a process to how you reintroduce foods. You can't just go back and start adding in all the foods that you avoided in the elimination phase, because the purpose of AIP is to help you to understand your food sensitivities, your food triggers, the things that actually can cause more inflammation in your body. So by avoiding those foods initially, you are helping to heal the gut. And then, if you are no longer, you can try reintroducing foods one at a time. And if you're no longer sensitive to that food, you can then implement it in your diet completely. But there is a process to it. You do it one by one. And also there is a process in terms of which foods you introduce when, so there are certain foods that are class 1 foods or category 1. That means you can reintroduce them first, and then then some foods that you reintroduce only in the end. So that's again based on science, and it is based on the fact that you want to reintroduce nutrient dense foods first. So for example, eggs and nuts, which are eliminated in the elimination phase of AIP, but those are some of the foods that you can reintroduce sooner than some of the other foods that are not as nutrient dense. Okay, so there's really a science behind all this reintroductions too. And so here's the list, right? This is a very general list. If you go to autoimmunewellness.com, you can get PDFs of, basically all foods listed, very nicely, a list of all the vegetables, etc. But here I have just, given you the categories. So what are the foods that need to be avoided? All grains. Grains meaning everything, right? Wheat, gluten or whole wheat also, as well as other grains like rice, corn, millets, everything, any kind of grains, barley, any grain avoided. Legumes are the ones which have pods in them, or, like your beans, basically. So all kinds of beans, all kinds of lentils, all those have to be avoided. Absolutely no legumes. Even certain vegetables which are legumes, like your peas, right? Fresh peas, those need to be avoided, as well as peanuts, because peanut is also a legume. No dairy, no refined oils. That's the other thing, which is very similar to paleo. And therefore I've, again, classified them as paleo and autoimmune, meaning all these, what I am talking about on this side, these are all paleo, right? You need to avoid all this for a paleo diet. No refined oils, nothing, no refined sugars, no processed foods, as long as you do that, that's paleo. When you add the autoimmune component to it, what happens is you additionally avoid all nuts, all seeds, all eggs, no nightshades. What are nightshades? Nightshade vegetables are basically tomatoes, peppers, and eggplant, as well as the peppers that are chili peppers. So all those come under the class of nightshades. So you have to avoid nightshade plants. No alcohol, no coffee, no chocolate, no dairy. So dairy was here, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, this erroneously came up here too, but basically all these things, when you avoid together, then you are doing the AIP elimination phase. Now, what can you eat? Right, so now this is another thing that I really like to focus on. with clients, when I'm coaching them, I really ask them to really focus on what you can eat. When you start looking at the list of just the avoiding things and you feel like it is really long and that makes me all stressed, how am I going to do this? But then I tell them, look at the focus on the list of foods that you can eat. And there is a lot. There is a lot in that list too. So basically all kinds of meat. Now, when I say meat here, though, it goes without saying that it has to be good quality meat. That means no antibiotics, no hormones, ideally grass-fed meat. If you're, doing beef, etc., it has to be grass-fed. Then seafood has to be wild caught. Poultry, has to be organic without hormones. So definitely the quality of the meat is important, but you can eat all of these, all seafood, vegetables. Now, most all vegetables except for the nightshade vegetables that I talked about earlier, as well as um, peppers or anything, as well as peas. I'm sorry. Peas, fresh peas are also not AIP. So other than that, all vegetables you can add. Mushrooms are good. Fruits, all fruits are okay. Quality fats, meaning good quality fats, all herbs and spices. Well, there are some restrictions to spices here, like you cannot have black pepper and you cannot have seed-based spices. Remember, in the list of things to avoid, along with nuts, you also avoid seeds. So in the seeds, you also come, you have to avoid seed-based spices. So you have to avoid that for initially. And then the important here, why I have written it like this, this is all paleo, and why autoimmune specifically in terms of what you can eat, is that you have to focus. Autoimmune really stresses more on seafood, more on organ meat, and more on vegetables, because these are highly nutrient dense foods. And that is the basis of the AIP diet, of the healing, that you have to add nutrient dense foods. Okay, so that's very important. And here I wanted to give you some examples of what foods you can have. So there are healthy healthy fats like olive oil, pastured lard. Yes, lard is good as long as it's pastured. Bone broth, homemade bone broth is my most favorite thing on AIP. That's something that I ask everybody on AIP needs to do. Make their own bone broth and have that regularly. It's incredible for healing and for reducing inflammation. Then organ meats. Yes, organ meats are also great because they are highly nutrient dense. So occasionally add to your diet, or not occasionally, frequently add to your diet, like liver, chicken liver or beef liver, or as well as other organ meats like hearts, etc. Colorful vegetables. Now, eat the rainbow. That's what I tell people, because that means you are maximizing on the nutrition value. Fermented foods, that's also very important. I make my own fermented foods at home. I also have done a video before, where I've shown you how to make your own fermented foods at home. So you can check that video out. And then fish and shellfish, really those are very, very important because they're very highly nutrient dense. Do not just, if you avoid all the foods that are on the avoid list of AIP, but then you're only eating chicken and vegetables, and maybe you only eat like chicken and one vegetable, like broccoli or cucumber and avocado every day, then you're not really getting the full benefit of AIP, meaning you're not really embracing the philosophy of AIP completely. So it's very important to add in all these pieces. And next is like lifestyle changes, right? As I said before, it's not just the diet, it's also the lifestyle. And what are the different things in terms of lifestyle? As I said before, stress, sleep, activity, all these things. And why are they important? Because all of these factors have shown to have an impact on your function, on the functioning of your immune system. And that's the reason AIP recommends changes in lifestyle as well. You have to make every effort to reduce stress in your life, or do, embrace stress reduction techniques like meditation, etc. Sleep is very, very, very critical. I can't like say enough of how important sleep is to, to basically the functioning of your immune system. Exercise is important too, and within exercise there is also the important part about exercise is that movement is important, but excess or vigorous exercise or high intensity exercise is not recommended, because you have to be in the middle when it comes to exercise. Moderate exercise is what's recommended, not very, very high intense exercise. At least initially, when you're trying to heal from autoimmune disease, you cannot be doing a lot of like cardio, a lot of very high intensity workouts. You can't be doing that. You have to be doing moderate exercise, and also gentle exercises like yoga and tai chi. Those are my really, most recommended ones. And then connection and mindfulness, which is related to stress, so you can help to reduce stress. And all these, why are they important? Because they have an impact on gut health. All these things have an impact on gut health as well as or hormone regulation, and that in turn has an impact on your functioning of your immune system. So next is who can benefit from AIP. So who can benefit from AIP? This is really something that I get asked a lot. And, my family, friends, they all have seen how AIP has helped me, heal from my autoimmune disease and from inflammation and pain. So there are many times people will approach me and ask me if they should do AIP and whether that'll help them. And knowing the science behind AIP and that there is so much, good scientific rationale behind this, I always encourage people to give it a try, whatever their condition. And in most cases, people really see an improvement in their condition after doing AIP. So, the main people who can benefit from AIP are the people who have an established autoimmune condition, right? They have a diagnosed autoimmune condition. But even those people who do not have a diagnosed autoimmune condition but are experiencing pain and inflammation can benefit from it. So let me share with you a list of conditions where I feel AIP can benefit you. So, first of all, as I said, those who are suffering from an autoimmune condition, and the entire list, or a lot of the names of those conditions I talked about on my other episode where I talk about autoimmune causes of autoimmune condition. And then people who are suffering from pain and inflammation. So even if they do not have an autoimmune condition, for example, arthritis, even if they have osteoarthritis or some other kind of arthritis, you will definitely benefit from AIP because it will help to reduce inflammation in your body. Those suffering from food sensitivities. Now, why do I say that? Because food sensitivities is, if you are having food sensitivity, that means if you're sensitive to some foods. Now, mind you, the sensitivity is different from allergy. I'm not talking about allergies. I'm talking about sensitivity. That means, when you eat certain food, you don't get like a full-blown allergic reaction. However, the next day or in a day or two, you start noticing that your knee pain gets worsened, or you get a flare, or something you notice that happens, or you get a migraine, etc. So for that, definitely AIP will help, because AIP will heal the leaky gut. And then over time, you can reintroduce those foods back. And it's possible that your food sensitivity will just go away because of the process of elimination and healing that happens with AIP. Then next, people again, suffering from fatigue, pain, inflammation without a diagnosis. I say that because, autoimmune conditions are highly underdiagnosed. It takes an average of, 5 years for many people or most people to come up with a diagnosis of autoimmune condition. And until then, they're just going from doctor to doctor and, trying to figure out what's wrong with them. And, so if you are in that kind kind of a situation and really don't have a diagnosis, I would say just give AIP a try. You have nothing to lose, only to benefit. But you have to make sure that you have to follow that process as I described to you earlier. And then I just wanted to add this additional thing about chronic regional pain syndrome. This is because, person whom I know closely recently had tried AIP, and she was suffering from CRPS, and again had tried a lot of different things. None of the doctors ever told her to try diet. But this poor thing, is really a young person, and my heart went out to her, seeing her pain. And I'd been recommending to her, why not give AIP a try? And finally, she did try AIP. And lo and behold, what happened? She started feeling much, much better. Her pain reduced by half, by 50% by just doing AIP. So you never know, you can just give it a try. There are also some other, conditions where I have suggested AIP to clients, and it actually helped. For example, GERD. If you are suffering from, GERD or acid reflux that's really very severe, again, doing AIP can actually help, and I'm not saying that do AIP forever. AIP as a process is what I'm saying, like, eliminate it for a short period of time and then reintroduce it, just giving your body the healing thing. And what happens is, it also AIP, just because you're eating healthy and you're eliminating all processed foods from your diet, what ends up happening is your digestion improves a lot. And when your digestion improves a lot, even things like acid reflux, etc., which is a result of poor digestive enzymes or juices, all those problems just go away. So there is no harm in giving that a try, right? So so basically, AIP can be beneficial in a lot of different things. Now, oops, I'm going backwards here, sorry. The other thing I wanted to just quickly point out are that there are a few medical studies on AIP also available now, where we have seen really positive results in IBD, that's inflammatory bowel disease, like Crohn's disease, and UC, where participants, by end of week 6 on AIP elimination, they ended up in clinical remission, which is phenomenal. That's just great. Even being on medication, they were not able to go into remission, but being on AIP helped them get into remission. So there is really solid data when it comes to Crohn's and UC about the benefits of AIP. Then Hashimoto's also, the study measured quality of life measures, mental energy, physical energy, as well as body pain, etc., as well as digestive symptoms, sleep. And all of these factors improved greatly in the group who were doing AIP. And then more studies are in progress in psoriasis and eczema. Basically, as I said before, AIP has been used, and not maybe necessarily a study, but used as evidenced by a lot of testimonials and recovery stories that you can find on the internet. A lot of them you can find on autoimmunewellness.com too. Check out, the name of your autoimmune disease and just say that name and AIP. And if there are any recovery stories, they will pop up, and you can see how AIP has benefited that particular person. So again, as I was saying, the main important websites that I recommend as a resource are autoimmunewellness.com, thepaleomom.com, phoenixelix.com. And then there are also books like The Paleo Approach by Dr. Sarah Ballantyne, the Autoimmune Wellness Handbook, and then also cookbooks, like, these are two. There are lots of AIP cookbooks, mine included, but the two big ones are Autoimmune Paleo Cookbook and Nutrient Dense Kitchen by Mickey Trescott. And here finally is my cookbook, which is called as AIP Indian Fusion. And this book includes 114 AIP compliant recipes. That means they are 100% AIP elimination phase compliant. And so basically you can take this book, and there's also a 1 month meal plan in it, like 4 weekly plans in this. So you can basically just take this book and implement 100% AIP for a month and see how that helps you in reducing inflammation in the body. All right, so I hope this session was useful to you, and bye for now.